Hey guys, Robbie K here, coming at you with not one, but two movie reviews in the span of the next, hopefully, half an hour. We're doing kind of our finish up of the 4 weeks, so if you're tuning in, thank you very much for being a supporter of Robbie's movie reviews. And as always, we're here to try to give you the 411 on what's in the theaters and whether or not you should waste your time and money with it if you're looking for a movie. Now, tonight, like I said, we're doing two, and we're going to start this one off with Slenderman. Essentially the newest horror movie to hopefully give you the creeps and get you talking about a very hot topic back in the days of a couple of years ago or so. For those of you who don't know, Slenderman was kind of the urban legend that somehow managed to drive some people to the point of obsession, to eventually even leading to potentially insanity. And with it, of course, came a lot of interest because what horrifies us and shocks us seems to be the hot topic of the day for many of us. Anyway, not going down that pathway, Slenderman kind of found its calling in the form of video games, pictures, photo edits, and, of course, a few potential other media outlets before finally making its way into the screen here in 2018. Now, as always, Robbie K is here to kind of give you the reviews on it, and we'll go from there in terms of whether or not it was a hit or just something you need to maybe just quit. Stage one review is essentially this. Slenderman is definitely one of the more disturbing and wicked of the ones that kind of dives into the psyche and is really kind of something off of some of the other psychological horror movies we've seen, such as The Rings. It's definitely a teenage-directed audience, and mainly its characters, and as such, it might be kind of the teen scene scream when it comes to kind of the films this week. I can't necessarily say it was my favorite for me. It did its job of providing some cheap, kind of weird creep-out moments, especially with the design and integration of Slenderman himself. But outside of that, I didn't feel that it really executed its job as a horror well. And if you stay for the stage two, you'll see why. But story-wise and purpose-wise, just didn't really fit for me. And I kind of felt that it aimlessly wandered around for about an hour and a half just to have a very wrapped-up, tight ending that didn't quite work for me the way I think he wanted him to. You know, it's all right though. Not every horror movie can be a home run, but this one is kind of a little under the bar for my personal taste. In regards to it, I can't really recommend this one to see on just about any media device unless you're obsessed with Slenderman or just have to have that teenage scream / disturbing imagery fill your mind. Outside of that, that's about all I can say in terms of the stage one review. So head on out, and we'll see you in a few minutes for the second one. In regards to the stage two review, I don't know why I keep saying interview tonight. The stage two review starts with, of course, the likes. And when it comes to the Slenderman, there's a little bit that I can say that I liked. First of all, thank goodness it's only about an hour and a half long, that it didn't go longer, that it didn't feel as long as it probably could have. Slenderman, because of its kind of teenage target audience, it kind of just kept moving, and took very little stops to derail it from its path of just getting the movie out there. I can say that it was definitely creepy, and most of that comes from the fact of use of cinematography, the setting itself, and I'll have to say the design of the chief antagonist, the titular character. They did a fantastic job of kind of using those three to get you feeling a little creeped out. Because we're not in some far-off cave, we're not trapped in a random realm or something like that, because we're in a realistic setting. I guess that's the first thing that kind of gets under your skin. Then you kind of throw in again the cinematography that brings out a lot of the shadows, a lot of the fear factor of it, looking the sickly pale and abandonment that can come with being out at night and in the woods. That was a beautiful technique use. It's so simple and does a very good job at getting the creeps across. And then, of course, the digital character himself. While certainly not the most realistic horror creature to arise out of the silver screen imagination place, it is definitely still worth creeping out over, mostly because of just the faceless eye, the silent stalking, and of course those creepy fingers that could give Lady Deathstrike a run for her money in terms of, I guess, deadliness, etc. So, overall, there was a good choice of that. A fantastic use of makeup as well, because as some of the characters kind of evolve as we go through it, the makeup did a fantastic job of, I guess, documenting what was happening to them. And, outside of that, that's about all I can say in terms of likes, other than I felt that the leads did their jobs well. I think they made the characters come alive in the direction that the movie was being taken. So, kudos to them for accomplishing that goal. But that's about all I can really do to throw it into the mix. Now let's get to the dislikes. Well, the first thing comes from the fact that the characters just weren't fun. Again, it kind of reminds me of an MTV teenage thriller that you just have these very shallow, self-centered girls who go and do stupid stuff and kind of bring all this onto themselves. And while some movies are able to kind of dig out of that hole, this one did not, and I just don't think the direction of the girls was my cup of tea. I think that the kind of self-centered and very, I guess, linear and mono-directional characters, I'm missing a character that I could not only relate to, but actually root for. The second thing is that disturbing imagery goes only so far, but to focus on a movie and make it kind of the center focus without really justifying it, that's kind of the second part that didn't go so well for me. The third thing is that it's very predictable, very stereotypical components of a horror movie like this. It lacked kind of the originality and finesse that we've seen some movies for. And given the fact that this highly controversial topic with a lot of background history, you could have done some serious diving into the lore to bring out some originality factors. I kind of think that when it comes to the plots, the plot itself was not the strongest, which for some people, including a few of my friends, a scare like this and a game like this, you don't necessarily need a plot, just the element of creeping out. And I agree with that. But at the same time, if I'm going to sit there for an hour and a half and try to get on board with these girls who just made a stupid mistake and then stop making stupid mistakes, I can't necessarily say that that's kind of what I want to see in a movie myself. And I think that's where it failed, is that the story had plot gaps and points that they were starting to take only to whoosh it right off. So that was definitely not the strongest component. And even more so, the movie seemed to have a tough time figuring out which direction it wanted to take. It kind of wandered around and wanted to kind of dive down these pathways, but could never do it. And as a result, it left just this very ambiguous kind of trail where you were just waiting, at least for me, I was just waiting for it to end so we can figure out what the heck was going to happen to them and see if there's going to be a sequel. Regardless, it didn't work out for me on that, and the story and direction were probably the parts that made this movie suffer for what it was. Now, overall, like in stage one, I can't necessarily say that Slenderman was the best horror movie, and given that you have a sci-fi creature horror movie in terms of The Meg, my money would be to go see that one over this one. And especially with other horror movies and thrillers coming out in the next few weeks, this is not one that I can recommend for the theater, and maybe can't even recommend for Redbox. It was just not my favorite. Again, the actresses did their jobs well. kudos to makeup, cinematography, and kind of scare design teams. And I'll even give them kudos for some nostalgia that I didn't say, because there's a lot of movies that kind of remind me being integrated and used for motivation, including kind of The Ring. You've got a little bit of kind of the Blair Witch Project in terms of some of the found footage that they did. And I would definitely say a couple of other films like Wish Upon and maybe even The Conjuring a little bit to kind of help out with it. It's just not, it didn't work for me, and I would say its target audiences are teenagers who just want to try to go and see something disturbing to test their merit. Outside of that, skip it, guys. My scores would be in this genre of kind of horror, probably a 4, 4.5. Movie overall, probably a 3 for me. So, outside of that, guys, as always, greatly appreciate you watching and listening to me ramble. If you hate my voice, I will also have a written review coming up. As always, I want to hear from you. What can I do? What kind of conversations you want? Leave comments. Help me make this better if possible. Until then, talk to you later. Robbie K out.